So don't not what day is today?
16th.
Who said that? Was that Jay? Is that Jay Zaidi? Jay, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
Why are you not wearing a suit?
Do I need to?
I dressed up for you. You didn't dress up for me?
I got pants on. I just stole your joke.
I don't, which isn't to say that I'm not clothed, but I'm not wearing pants. Jay, I don't know if you've been following the show, but typically, I have conversations with interesting business people, friends, colleagues, peers, etc. It's always been a one-on-one conversation. I think when we met, Las Vegas, 2013,
2013, 2014, yeah.
Do you think we should make today special and not just make it about you and me?
I say we need to bring in a third person.
I think we need a third. Who would you suggest we bring in?
Let me see.
It's got to be someone who's a full-time employee. It can't be a contractor.
Okay. I was just going to suggest a contractor.
Who's that? I know a couple contractors. Some of them swing hammers. Some of them write code. But my favorite contractor is someone by the name of Aamna. Do you know her?
I do.
Hey, there she is.
Hello. How's it going?
Oh, Aamna.
Your favorite contractor?
Is you.
Who can you say has a last name with contractor?
Sure.
Your brother.
Can you imagine how hilarious it would be if your career was actually to be like a contractor, like a tradesperson or some sort of contractor, and then you could say, "Hey, I'm the contractor, and I'm a contractor."
I've always been worried that if people see my resume and they see I'm a contractor, that they would think I'm applying for the wrong job. And I think people still think that.
Oh.
Because think about it, immediately you look at your resume, your contractor's right there. So I think it's a bit of an issue. I've thought about changing it.
So Aamna, we met, I want to say, I think it was during a crazy snowstorm in Ottawa a couple years ago, last year, 2 years, a while ago.
I can't remember if it was last year or the year before.
Was it Ottawa or was it Toronto?
It was Ottawa. It was when we had
Yes.
that conference and we were snowed in and our flights kept getting delayed.
Okay. So we have the benefit of knowing each other. Jay, you and I met in Vegas years ago.
Yep.
How did you and Aamna meet?
We met at that conference. That conference, yeah, in Ottawa.
So
yeah, I was at the conference and then we started working together and it's just, been a cycle.
So Aamna, you're a huge talent analytics nerd. You've made the transition to kind of be an in-house talent acquisition leader now. Jay, you've been a talent acquisition leader for, I don't even know how long.
Long time, yes.
How are you guys seeing the market now and how are you seeing things shift as a result of COVID-19?
Go ahead, Jay.
Okay. There's a bunch of parts to that answer. To that question. I'm finding that a lot of companies right now are just taking it day by day. So any long-term planning that was in the works has kind of gone out the window. So I think a lot of companies are looking to the government, they're looking to their peers to see what they're doing and see if they can adopt sort of strategies around retaining people or keeping them busy if it's an industry where you kind of have to be there to do the work. I think you see a lot of companies now shifting inexplicitly over to your remote work. So a lot of companies that wouldn't say they did remote work before are now forced to have to deal with the reality. So that's what I'm seeing right now in the marketplace. I see a lot of talent. A lot of them are nervous. A lot of them are scared. Many have been laid off, especially in the tech sector. All that VC money has kind of gone on hold or dried up for the most part. And so you're seeing a lot of startup organizations suffer. You're seeing a lot of large organizations put a lot of planning on hold. So that's what I'm seeing out in the marketplace.
And just to add on, sorry, John, but just to add on to Jay was the concept of redeployment as well. So if you think about companies that are deemed as non-essentials and they have a vast majority of employees, let's say entertainment companies and whatnot. So if we take employees from there and redeploy them at essentials, at essential services such as Sobeys and No Frills and Walmart, I think those are some of the strategies that companies are also thinking about, because as much as we don't want everyone, we can't assume that no one wants to work. Some people have to work. They have to make ends meet, make ends meet. And so therefore, I find that companies are now reaching out. So Sobeys is reaching out to Freshco. Freshco is reaching out to Metro. They're all trying to share that load. They don't care where you're from. They just want to make sure that employees who want to work continue to want to work, or can work as well. So I'm finding a lot of companies are doing that, looking at redeployment strategies, looking at also employer branding. And that kind of hits a lot on your world, John, in terms of you judge companies by the way they react to COVID, right? How are they dealing with working from home right now? How are they managing the change from long-term strategy planning to now short-term strategy planning? Are they considering the employees, the families, those who are taking care of caregiving duties, or those who are parents? So I find employer brand right now is super priority at this point.
And that's a really interesting scenario and commentary in that I really feel you nailed it there. That I think people are going to but they're really going to judge organizations based on their reaction to COVID. And I see some companies doing a lot of great things. I see other companies like, just come on, smack your head a little bit. But one thing, and Jay, I think Jay, you touched on it. Flexibility used to be, God, Jay, we've been in this business, I don't know how long, 20 years, 16 years. We've seen buzzwords every year. Every year at LinkedIn Talent Connect, there's a new buzzword. And it makes me just shave my head. But
me too.
Flexibility. Aamna, when are you going to shave your head?
I think it's coming soon. I feel like it's a trend.
It's funny, and I've had this conversation a number of times with a number of people. If you want to cut your hair, you have to do it yourself now. It's only a matter of time before you come to the Jay and John side. Just saying.
Give me like a couple months and you might see a whole new do.
That's a verbal contract.
Yeah, no, I'm serious. We'll do another one.
Oh, it's recorded too. It's on video. So,
but one thing I'm really curious of is flexibility went from kind of, I guess you can work from home once a week or once a month. And now it's forced flexibility. And in the knowledge working space, that is how businesses are surviving right now. It's fit up your people to work from home, get them what they need, and so on and so forth. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. And Aamna, you're in the like realistically in your world, there's people that can work from home, but there's also a lot of people that have to work on premise just based on what you guys do. But I'm really curious to hear both of your thoughts on what's going to happen with those organizations that have been hesitant to allow flexibility, allow work from home, allow remote work. Once we're back to not our old normal, because I think the world has fundamentally changed, but when it's safe to go to work again, what's going to happen with flexibility and work from home? Like, are employees going to now demand it? Like, if you trusted me to work from home during COVID, why can't I work from home post-COVID? Like, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I think what a lot of companies are going to do is they're going to start looking at their office leases and start second guessing whether or not they actually need a physical presence. For knowledge-based organizations, that might be an easier proposition than an organization, say like a grocery store that needs a physical space. So I think that we're going to see over the next couple of years, a lot of companies realize that they don't have to spend $2-3 million a year just to have office for people to work. They can just set people up at home and set the infrastructure up so that people can work remotely. So I think that that's fundamentally going to be the difference between how companies have operated before and how they're going to operate going forward. There are some organizations where you absolutely have to be physically there because it is a business where you either manufacture things or you deliver things or you warehouse things and you move things around from a logistics perspective. I think the other thing that we're going to see is more and more startups and more organizations start building tools for those industries that haven't yet been as disrupted, are now being disrupted. So we're going to see a lot more emphasis, in my opinion, we're going to see a lot more emphasis on tools that help enable employees to work anytime, anywhere. And some of it's already out there already. Like we have Zoom and we have, big in our world, recruiting and HR platforms that you can log into from any point, in any location in work. But I think that a lot of what we're seeing is just a proposition that things are only going to change for the better for those people that have long commute times or are just stressed out because they can't balance work and life. I think we're going to see a lot of differences and changes around that coming down the road. So, you know, this situation is terrible indeed, but it's forcing us to rethink how companies work and how people live.
Aamna, what about you?
And yeah, I completely agree with Jay as well. I think one of the additional advantage that we're going to have is also we're going to rethink our sourcing strategy. Now, if you think about candidates, when I'm looking for work, I need to make sure, okay, how far is the distance, right? A 20-minute, 30-minute, an hour, I don't think I could do it, right? You're really looking into the factoring. And also if you're a parent and you know you have a child who's in daycare, will you make it back in time? So there's a lot of different things that people are considering outside of just the work aspect of things. And now if we know that we are offering work from home, we might be able to tap into a different type of talent. We might be able to look broader. We might not be so worried about, you know, this person is all the way in, you know, 2 hours away. How will they make it? But they'll be just as efficient. Also, one thing I do want to note that I've read just recently on LinkedIn was, you know, everyone says we're working from home, and yes, we are, but I think this is a very different type of working from home. This isn't our traditional working from home. Like I wasn't working from home like this in Feb, where, you know, now I feel like I'm online all the time just because I can be and I have nothing else to do, right? might as well keep my computer on. But usually when I'm working from home and it's like in Jan and February, I'd work from home, I'd be till 5 and then, you know, you go about your normal day activities and stuff. For parents, they don't have kids around because their kids are in school. So it's not the real norm yet. I think people are realizing, like Jay mentioned, that this is a new way of working. Some companies are awesome at it. I do have to give kudos to some companies. A lot of the technology companies that have embedded this a couple of years ago, they've done a great job because they have the tools in place. And just like what Jay said, a lot of companies are now thinking of ideas of, okay, well, Slack is working really well, but what if we add Slack and video all together? Right? Like what if it's like a 2-in-1? And so all these ideas are now going to be created during this time because folks have some free time. And this is when they say that all your ideas are going to be created. And so 6 months from now, we might see something cool. And that's when companies will take on this work from home seriously and start adapting these tools and make it a bit more efficient for employees.
So Jay, I'm curious, and this is going to be a 2-part question. You have a young family. You have 2 kids?
2 kids, a 10-year-old daughter, 8-year-old son.
A 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. So you're now going through the process of they're now home all the time, and you know you've got to teach them now. I'm curious, based on your experience over the past month, and bear in mind your kids will never see this video, so you can tell the truth.
Okay.
Are you suggesting, based on your experience, that Aamna and I should have kids? Like Aamna, not together. You know what I mean?
Thank you for that clarification.
Not that there's anything wrong with you. I think you're lovely. But I meant like, anyway. Do you think it's better for me and Aamna to focus our energy on developing new startups that help, you know, parents in this scenario, or help employees or help HR teams? Or do you think it's more productive for us to continue the human race and then get stuck with our kids 24 hours a day, 35 days in a row?
What a tough question.
That is a loaded question. You know how the government has this work sharing plan? Maybe we can have a child sharing plan. So, so I can drop my kids off at your place for, I don't know, like 8 hours, and I could just do my thing. And then, you know, I'll take my kids back after you're exhausted. And so, and same with you, Aamna.
I'll sign up for that, but only if I'm allowed to give your kids the loudest, most obnoxious toys and a bunch of sugar. I could like take care of them for a couple hours, but I want to hand them back loaded up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, people do that all the time. When we had little kids, like I'll hand my kids off to my to their grandparents, my parents, and they would just load them up on sugar. And then when we pick them up at the end of the day, they're hopped up and they're running around, and they're doing circles, and they're like, you know, they're pouncing on you. They're like little animals at a point. But
So Emna, how are you holding up? It looks as though Jay is in a. I have to assume, based on the expansiveness of the kitchen, that this is a home or a house. Aamna, based on what I'm seeing behind you, it appears to be some sort of Soho loft. Looks like you're
It's
on
not.
the kitchen. The kitchen
Unfortunately,
island.
no. I'm sorry to break it to you, John. It's not. But me and my partner are living in a condo right now, so we're trying to balance. The hard part I find is meetings, right? Because I take meetings and then he takes meetings, and trying to ensure that the voice doesn't leak through from his
Yeah.
meeting to my meeting. Because I think when I'm in it, like right now, I just think I'm just talking to you both, right? But now let's say he starts talking, you'll be able to hear him through it. And I forget about that until someone in the meeting is like, hey, can you mute yourself? And I'm like, okay, I'll mute myself. But I think that's happening a lot. And I know a lot of my colleagues and stuff are facing the same issue. They're trying to plan out their meetings so it's equal. And it is tough. It doesn't get easier. I'm sure with kids, it's tougher. I can definitely imagine that. But yeah, you're trying to create your own schedule with two people working at the same time, which is tough.
So we're all. This is kind of a fun meet. It's not that these aren't normally fun, but like we all met through a variety of speaking gigs, and Jay, you and I met through LinkedIn, but have met again through speaking gigs many times. We all kind of have different biases and different areas of expertise or niche focuses within the talent acquisition world. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on, you see these organizations that, I guess for the most part, employ like unskilled labor that are still laying off. Like let's jump out of the tech world for a minute. Things like retail. How do you think these organizations are going to be able to retain their existing employee base when things kind of get back to normal? And at the same time, like the idea of the hiring boom post-COVID, it's coming. Like once we have that ability to go back to the office and go back to work and the economy opens up again and all that kind of stuff, I feel like there is going to be such a land rush for talent. And we're in this point right now where there's a lot of people sitting at home and they're more open to a conversation than they were a month ago or 2 weeks ago, or they've been negatively impacted by COVID and they're at no fault of their own, they're available now, but there's not necessarily new professional homes for them yet. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how like these retail organizations or your ideas on how they could hang on to their existing people. And at the same time, when the hiring boom comes, what do you think organizations should be doing right now to prep themselves for that?
Branding from talent branding, I think, is absolutely key to keep an organization visible in front of people. So to answer your first question, I think that this is your first statement. I feel like this is going to be like a W-shaped recovery instead of like a V-shape. You know how people are saying it's going to go down, it's going to go straight up. I think it's going to be like this, and then it's going to pop. And I think that little part there, we're going to see second and third waves of the pandemic and lockdowns and restrictions and that sort of things. So I think certain industries at certain points within that little squiggly line I'm drawing, they're going to start hiring, but they're going to start hiring carefully. So they start hiring with the most critical people in mind, those people that are typically going to be on the ground, actually doing the work and delivering the services. Then we'll start seeing companies ramp up their efforts with respect to like head office staff. Because I think that ultimately the companies that have retained the employees that are currently working today are the people that are going to help them grow and get back to where they were, or hopefully where they were before all of this happened. I think with the expectation that companies going to be hiring again, and I hope they are, talent branding absolutely key. But they got to keep their conversations open with candidates as well. There's a number of recruiters that are still working that are, hiring. This is the time to actually start building those relationships with key people that you wouldn't have had the opportunity to talk to before. Because guess what? most people are open to a conversation. They want to find out when this thing does recover, where they're going to end up and where they're going to land. And you want to start those conversations now.
And I find that a lot of folks right now as well are going through, and I don't know if it's just me, but a lot of people are self-reflecting at this time. So because they're self-reflecting, they're going through what career should I be in next? What's next for me? Similar to what Jay said, right? Like they are open to having that conversation. And so I find that even right now I'm having folks reaching out on LinkedIn just to have a quick conversation, and they themselves they're not sure what they want to do next. So we're trying to guide them, and having that's, for me, that's called sourcing, right? That's how do you maintain your talent pipeline? You have to have a continuous talent pipeline where you're just nourishing that throughout this time. You don't have to talk to them every day, but you're just nourishing it. And I think that's how we can prep talent leaders for post-COVID, right? Not to say that, after COVID, they're like, I need an engineer. Okay, have one right away. You're not going to have that, but you already have that nourished pipeline, that nourished bucket of people that you somewhat know what they were thinking. You had that, how are you handling this? And sometimes it's also just nice to check up on your network just to see how they're doing. One of the other things that I've noticed that I was really impressed by, I'm sure that this list has been circulated around, but companies and friends are pulling together lists of employees who have been laid off. And that's a great starting point, right? Start talking to some people from there. That gives you some background of what types of roles are being laid off. Right now, I find that security, chat, digital, tech, because companies are trying to, especially in retail, they're trying to get from their brick and mortar like stores to digital online. So they need people who can convert that to digital online. And so when they're sourcing, they can go through this list. There's so many different avenues to find talent. I think the hardest part is forgetting that we have to nourish it. We have to keep on talking to them, see where they are, because people can change careers in a matter of 3 months these days, right?
So Jay, you and I are old, and
I feel that way.
I should say,
bones, I can hear them creaking.
Do you want to hear my shoulder pop? There it goes. Anyway, you and I are older than Aamna.
More experienced.
We are like red wine that gets better with age.
We're like a 18-year-old Scotch, except triple the time on that. I don't know.
I enjoy Scotch every time I need to clean a paintbrush, but other than that, but you and I have seen different downturns in the market. You've both been through a couple different booms and a couple different holy craps. Aamna, you before we hit record, you had brought up a whole idea about how there's a lot of people that are now filing for EI for the first time, and there's a lot going on with the government in terms of assistance and all that kind of stuff. But it's navigating this whole world it's got to be terrifying, especially I don't have kids, I have a cat, but I can't imagine being in a situation where I had like 5 kids and no job and no income coming in, that kind of thing. I can only empathize for those people because I don't know how they're doing it. But what advice would you give, Aamna, for someone that's finding themselves laid off for the first time? And I know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know what tunnel, and I don't know what light, and I don't know where or when. But I know we're going to get through this. But what advice do you have now for those people that are finding themselves for the first time in a scenario where, at no fault of their own, their job disappeared, they're stuck at home, they have a condo with a partner who also has meetings, you're trying to figure out how to mute yourself when you can't mute yourself? Like, what advice would you give for those people?
That's a good question. And so for myself, I had a really different situation where I got laid off maybe 4 years ago, but it was different. And I remember when I got laid off 4 years ago, I was like, I don't know how to do this. Like it wasn't a COVID-19 situation. It was just no money in the bank type of situation. So I remember trying to figure out Service Canada website alone. I was like, oh, I get EI. How much? How does it work? How do they figure out if I'm qualified enough for it? So that alone was really difficult. And so now when I'm hearing a lot of people who are struggling with this, who are getting laid off, it hit me hard because I knew how difficult it was for me at that age. Hopefully there's not a lot of folks who are getting impacted by this in that dramatic way of, as you mentioned, 5 kids and not knowing how to manage and what's next, for me, the biggest advice that I could say is there's a lot of articles out there right now, but a lot of articles don't technically have the best sources, right? Things are changing. The legislation's changing every week. Just last week or 2 weeks ago, Trudeau came up with something else to help support contractors. And so my big thing is always look on Service Canada. Look at that website. That should be your main source of information. No articles, no emails, no playbooks and whatnot. Like I myself have created one for my colleagues and my friends just because I wanted to dilute the information. But even if you're looking at a playbook, look at the sources. All the sources should be my service, like Service Canada. The other thing is a lot of human resources professionals, and I'm sure you've all noticed online, they're offering their services in terms of counseling and supporting on how to direct people. They won't tell you what to do, but they will tell you, hey, okay, if you are a contractor and you are got reduced hours, you can actually apply to CURB. Because people don't know that. Some people, which I totally understand, they're trying to avoid the news, so they're not trying to listen to Trudeau's 11 o'clock, daily meetings, which I totally understand. But I think it is important to know that if you're in that situation, look at Service Canada and talk to someone, because it is super overwhelming to just look at Service Canada. But if you have someone, and I'm more than happy to help as well, and I'm sure that John and Jay would obviously put their services in use as well. But it helps to have that conversation when you're alone and you're just so overwhelmed, because I still remember to this very day, the day that I got laid off and how I'm like, what do I do now? Right? Because it's a hit on your physical being, your mental being, your family, you're stressed out basically, right? So you basically would start from square one. But my first thing is that apply for EI as soon as possible. And in order to get that support, look at Service Canada and talk to someone like myself or any other professionals that you know in the industry.
Aamna, what's your personal cell phone number?
I'm scared.
I'll just put it in my system right here. There we go.
The funny thing is, I actually have it already, and I could do a screen
You'll
share.
just put a little screenshot up there.
There it is. No, it wasn't there. That was a blank screen.
But I am more than happy to help. Nevertheless, like I always tell people, please message me on LinkedIn. Like this is something that I'm honestly very passionate about. I understand the pains of it, and it does hurt a lot to hear these stories. But I would rather support, even if it's just translating Service Canada into an easier way of understanding it.
Okay, so guys, just being conscious of the time. I have one last question for both of you. Jay, we'll start with you. And I think you'll have different perspectives because you're in different environments, you're in different family situations, all that kind of stuff. What has surprised you the most that you've learned about yourself since all of this happened? Like you've been in, like you used to run recruiting for TMX, you've run recruiting for huge companies, you've had your own thing. Like you've been an outdoor cat and an indoor cat and an outdoor cat and an indoor cat. You've got your own collection of kittens at home. You've got a massive kitchen.
It's big.
Over the past month, what has surprised you the most that you've learned about yourself? And Aamna, I'll give you like 2 minutes to think about your answer because I'm going to ask the same question after Jay's done.
Wow, that's a great question. Putting me on the spot there. I've been through a lot of ups and downs in my career. I know that careers don't go in a linear or logarithmic fashion. They don't just go straight up. They just kind of swirl around and they go up and down. And that goes for, everybody else. Don't expect that your career is always going to do this. If you are, you're very, very lucky. From a career perspective, I'm learning how to cope with myself to some degree, because there is a lot of time where you do get to reflect. Yes, the kids are on us, 14 hours a day, as I mentioned before. We're trying to educate them, entertain them and whatnot. But the other thing that I've realized is that this time, and I know this is not for everybody, but this time right now, I'm actually really enjoying. And part of that is because I am with my kids and my family. This is the most time I've ever spent with my kids and my wife, believe it or not. I have been with my wife for 16 years now, 17 years. But this is the first time we've actually been locked up together for over 30 days. And we're learning, really, we're learning how to live with each other really for the first time, because we are boxed in And so I'm finding that I'm learning where my tolerance level is in terms of patience. I'm learning where I need to let go. I'm learning where I need to give a bit and take a bit. And same with my family, my wife. My kids are learning, where their boundaries are, and my wife as well. So I would say that honestly, I can't answer that question because I'm still trying to figure it out myself.
Okay, so Aamna, you've had, and Jay, great non-answer. That was awesome. And I'm curious to know when you've been locked up with your wife for 29 days, not 30, but that's another story for another day. Aamna, you've now had 2 minutes to think. And so
I want to copy his answer, but I won't. No, I mean, at the same time, I think right now, like agreeing with what Jay said is, yes, it is a little bit of a gift of time. That's kind of what I'm trying to call it, is we always say that we don't have enough time, and now we have so much time. So just yesterday, my calligraphy set came in, so I'm going to try that. But it also gave me so much time to reflect on career pathing, on understanding, where can I give back? Because right now I've learned to really appreciate frontline workers, healthcare workers. My mom is from the healthcare industry. So just seeing all of that happen and hearing about it, it's very eye-opening. And I think because it's so eye-opening, you take it back and you're like, okay, how can I give back? How can I help and support all these people who also need that help? While at the same time trying to learn more about yourself. And similar as Jay, like, got to learn about yourself. I'm learning about my partner. I'm trying to learn how we cope in this condo and kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. But right now I'm trying to focus a lot of my energy on mentally trying to understand what's going on, taking time for yourself. And as I mentioned, you're online all the time. How do you go offline and do something at home without having your laptop open, which is hard?
Jay, what's your TikTok handle?
Yeah, what's that? I'm not that old.
I figured with kids that you would be roped into some sort of Justin Bieber themed robot by now.
Yeah, my daughter wants a TikTok account. I think there's like a way you can actually use TikTok without actually posting something. So she's been playing around with that.
There is a way, if you're wondering.
Yeah.
I don't have one.
So you just know you're talented.
Oh, because I have one, but I snoop on it just to see what's going on.
So you went from I don't have one to I have one, but I snoop.
I'm not a professional TikToker yet.
If there's anyone out there watching, and I don't suspect they will be, but if there's anyone out there in the dark web that is watching that can hack Aamna's TikTok and show us her best.
That's the only one I would have.
Oriented
like
break
this.
theme.
There we go.
You know how to do it. Your hands. Those are learned.
That hurts. Does that not hurt?
I think you're too fingery there.
Yeah.
I think
okay. I'll get there. No.
There you go.
Okay.
That's pretty good. Anyway, guys, it's you guys. I can't wait to actually be in the same room at the same time as you guys again. I hope you're doing well. I am glad that I put on a shirt and a tie and a suit jacket and no pants. For you, I will not stand up. Right. But stay safe, stay well, and Aamna, that Promessil.
The protein box?
Show us the guns.
I don't have any.
There you go. It's great. Anyways, be safe, Jay. Kids are staying entertained and educated, and you and your wife are great. And Aamna, hope you and your partner maintain your sanity within your 1,000 square feet. And we'll talk again, I'm sure.
Hope to see you both soon.
Group up top.
Take care.
Jay, you missed the group. There we go.
There we go.
That's the worst coordinated up top. Anyway, guys, be good.
All right. Take care.